can you use a non-sheet music method like the Piano Man approach to play classical music? That's an interesting question, and one I'm going to try to answer for you in just a second. Hey folks, it's Piano Man Steve Lungrin here, founder of the Piano Man Approach online piano course. Thanks for joining us today, and this is an interesting topic that we're going to cover. Before we get started, if you enjoy videos like this, I would sure appreciate it if you'd give this a like, subscribe to the channel, share this with anyone you think might enjoy it, and please leave comments down below, even if they're mean comments, because I can take it. I'll probably block you, but I can take it. And it all helps me get up in the YouTube search ranking. So I appreciate that. Anyway, let's get into the topic today. So classical music and a method like the Piano Man approach. So my method is based on chords, rhythm patterns, and improvisation techniques, and we never use sheet music. We're not reading notes on the staff. So what I would say is, yes, there is some application for classical music or what we might call serious music, orchestral music, that kind of thing. But it's not the best way to do that, to be honest with you. I would say that my method of playing piano works on classical music about as well as reading notes on the page works on popular music, which is not very good. But it can work under certain circumstances, and it can get you limited success and limited authenticity. So let me give you some examples, okay? The main thing that you're going to miss out on is depth. However, you have to understand that at the core of it, particularly when we're dealing with Western music here, which is what most of the popular music that we're talking about, and going all the way back to the Renaissance, the Baroque period, the Viennese classic period, the Romantic era, and even this 20th century stuff where they went into that awful atonal stuff. Sorry if you like atonal music, but if you do, you're kind of a weirdo, and you have to admit that, okay? You just have to. All right, anyway. So the point is, all of it's based on the same 12 tones, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? It's based on the same 12 tones, and it's based on, the key signatures as we know them. The 12 keys, the 12 major keys, there's technically, there's minor keys, which you have two different versions of the scales. So they're based on all of the same music theory, whether you're talking about popular music, starting with the jazz era with Duke Ellington and working its way to the current era with Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran and all of these marvelous people like Beyonce Knowles and all of this stuff, and everything in between. It's still all based on those tones, and it's based on the same, concept of rhythms and the same chords. So there's enough connective tissue that you can do something with it. However, the big difference is going to be depth. And a lot of classical music has a great deal of depth, a lot of intricacies. So what I've been able to do, because I'm terrible at reading notes on a page, I'm just horrendous at it. It never connected with me. I actually, and I am not saying this in making light of this in any way, I actually think that perhaps I have a little bit of like a learning difference, or what they used to call a learning disability almost, in like computing that. I finally got to where I could sort of do it one note at a time for like a band instrument like tuba, which I played in high school. But I never could really make sense of it when I saw a big block of notes on two staffs for the piano. It just never clicked with me, even though I could go through and tell you, well, that note is a G, and that note is a B flat, and that note is an E flat, and that, I could tell you what the notes were on all the different lines and spaces on the bass clef and the treble clef, and I could figure out what the ledger line was. But you put it all together like that, and it was like kryptonite to Superman. So It was just never a good method for me. And lucky for me, I was never that interested in playing that music, even though I am an appreciator. I think a lot of it is just gorgeous and just truly masterful, beautiful, incredible art. But it just wasn't what made me want to be a piano player. What made me want to be a musician was popular music. The Beatles and Elvis and Billy Joel and Elton John and on James Taylor and Jim Croce and all the great singer-songwriters and the whole 80s pop explosion. I was a child of that. I loved it. And some of the great country and some of the kind of more stripped-down rock of the 90s and all of that stuff. So I just loved popular music, and that's what I wanted to play. And so when I was introduced to reading guitar chords and then plugging them into rhythm patterns and using simple improv techniques, that was my way. That didn't confuse me. I could look at those guitar chords and I could turn those guitar chords into the song. I could find a rhythm pattern that matched that song. Let me give you a quick example just so that you've got some idea of what's going on. We'll just, out of nowhere, we'll say, and I haven't even given this any thought whatsoever, but let's just say that it was Man-Eater by Hall & Oates, Whoa, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. And I don't know what key they did that in, but I'm just going to guess here because, like I said, I want you to see how quickly this comes together for me. So I'm going to pretend it's an A minor. And you could put those chords in front of me, and it'd be A minor, G, F, and then E7. And I could put a rhythm pattern on it. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. Whoa, here she comes. She's a man-eater. Got a little D minor in there ahead of it. See, I'm learning the chords as we go. Whoa, here she comes. The woman is wild. And suddenly I could make a song out of it. But if you notated all that out on staffs, I would have been lost. So classical music was really, really hard for me. And to get all of the depth that was there, I really struggled. And I tried. I studied for a few years with a lovely woman who was a very gifted teacher who did her best. And she basically had to break down everything that we tried. We worked through a Beethoven book, and I only got maybe 3 pieces under my fingers the entire time. And what she literally had to do was write chord symbols out above what was going on so that I wouldn't get completely freaked out by this huge block of notes. So it would be like, okay, this is C minor, G. So it would be like, and she would have to write, that's an F sharp, diminished chord, G. And that's how I had to learn it. So it took forever. It just took forever to get any of that. But I did at least see that we were dealing with chords. So what I was able to do is take that experience, and with some of the more popular classical pieces, I was able to use some of the skills I've learned for picking melodies out, and picked the melody out to some of them because I was getting booked to do weddings, and really people were booking me to sing songs during like the candle lighting and things like that. But then they didn't want to hire 2 piano players, so they would ask me, well, can you do like, whatever song we want for the bridal entryway, and can you do whatever the recessional is going to be and all of that? And I would be like, in order to get the gig, I'd be like, yeah, sure, of course I can. Okay, great. We want to use trumpet voluntary. And so I would sit down and just listen to the melody, and I could go, okay. right? And then I could piece together, what are the chords underneath it? So it'd be like C chord, G chord, C chord, C over E, D minor, C, da, da, G. Da, da, da. And then I would put a little bit of a rhythm pattern under it, just like I would a popular song if I were playing the melody with it. So I'd be like, bum, 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 bum. Right? And suddenly I kind of had my own version that sounded reasonably legit. Now, for somebody who's serious about playing classical music, they would roll their eyes. They would hear that this was a farce. They would turn over in their graves if they'd passed away. And they would be like, I can't believe what he just did. But to the average listener, it was close enough. I would do the same thing. I don't even remember what this piece is called, but I'm sure you've heard it at weddings before. It's something popular for when the bridal party is, or the wedding party is making their way down, but before the bride makes the entrance. And I'm not very good at it, but what I could kind of hear, I could hear the melody and I picked it out. And then I kind of worked out what the chords were. So it was like C chord, D minor, C over E, A minor, D minor, C over E, F, G. And if I got lost and I started to screw the melody up a little bit, I could just kind of go into some arpeggios. So I'm already on the chord. I'm comfortable with what the chord progression is. And so I could kind of like save myself and get to a place where I could start over again. So I'd be like... which is just me taking those chords and just kind of... And it was close enough. That was playing classical music with my method. Did it have the amount of precision? No. Did it have the amount of depth? Absolutely not. I would never pass myself off as a good classical pianist. But I was able to use this method that made way more sense to me than reading notes on the staff ever did, and use it to my advantage to be able to do a few things that would then get me some work, or that would be fun just to tinker around with. Because like I said, my problem was never that I didn't like classical music. My problem was that the delivery method for playing classical music and learning classical music just didn't work for me. And my true inspiration was always popular music. So I was able to do it with those things. I was able to, it helped. I learned how to play, and I actually scored high. I got a superior rating in high school at the district music contest by playing this piece, which is called one of the movements of the Pathetique Sonata by Beethoven. And the reason why I chose that was because Billy Joel had actually adapted that melody into a doo-wop song in 1983 for the chorus of this doo-wop song called This Night, which I loved, and that went, this night is mine, it's only you and I. So I was like, well, that's the one I want to learn. And it took forever to learn it. And I had to be shown note for note and kind of copy, because it wasn't until after I had seen my piano teacher play what was on the page that I could then see what was on the page and have it make sense, and then recreate it from the page with some practice. So she had to like take it small section by small section over a number of weeks and show it to me that way so that I could then put together how to play this thing. And then she had to write guitar chords over there. So it was A flat, and then this is an E flat 7 over D flat bass, A flat over C, E flat over G, A flat, E flat over G, F minor. And then that's a B flat 7 over an F bass, E flat. So that's how I had to learn what little classical music I can play. So it is possible to get a taste of it. But to me, it's very similar to when someone tries to learn popular music by reading notes on the page. There's always something missing. There's depth, there's attitude, there's spunk, there's pace, there's spontaneity. There's stuff that exists inside the world of popular music that just gets lost when someone is trying to read it off of a page. You know, unless it's something where there's this like huge arrangement and a big ensemble that because then everybody has to read something. But when you're talking about just like a little quartet or quintet that, you know, with a rhythm section that puts this thing together, it's more of a jam and it's more spontaneous and you kind of come up with things on the fly. And it's that little bit of element of spontaneity that actually makes it sound the way that it does. It isn't just that you play what they played, it's that you're making that choice in the moment. And that gets lost when you're reading it off of a page. And so where I would say is sometimes reading notes on a page helps with popular music. For example, somebody will probably in an Elton John book have done a good job of notating this signature line. The problem is, from that point forward, it's not going to sound like the song at all. From that point forward, it's going to sound like somebody wrote sheet music. And it's not going to help anyone who wants to sing or accompany a singer because they're always going to write the sheet music out with the melody written in. But even if you're going to play the melody, you're going to miss out on the chance to make choices in the moment, which is what makes it sound authentic to that genre. So there are certain signature lines that work out well because you've notated them sometimes, depending on the song. But more often than not, you miss more by using sheet music to play popular music than you gain, and by a pretty lopsided margin. And I would say the same thing is true trying to play classical music with chords and rhythm patterns. There's a lot more that you miss than what you gain. But in both cases, there is some utility, and it can help you in a limited basis to do some things. Another one that I had to do all the time was canon in D, right? Everybody wanted canon in D at their wedding. I didn't play it in D because it was easier for me to play it in C because there are no sharps and flats. And so I just kind of figured out the chord progression. C, G, A minor, E minor, F, C, F, G. And at that point, I didn't even try to do whatever was written in canon in D. I just thought, okay, there's my thing, and now I'm going to do my own ornamentation just within the chord and I'll build into more and more movement the farther we get into it. So it'd be like, all I'm doing is just basically playing arpeggios. I'm just taking the notes of the chord and just kind of... So it's like, this is a C chord and a G chord, A minor, E minor. And it was passable. You know, it was not, it worked out fine. The overwhelming majority of people there heard it as canon in D, even though I was in C and even though I was not following what was written in canon in D at all. Okay. So I guess that's the point. Yeah, you can do some things with some classical music this way. And even just some big, more written out, orchestrated things. I mean, I like to, sort of dip my toe in the pool of John Williams every once in a while because I absolutely love his movie scores. So I have to figure out a melody, and then I just kind of put a little rhythm pattern under it and find out what the chords are. So in this case, we'll take Indiana Jones. The new Indiana Jones movie just dropped. Kind of work out that's what the melody is, and then I work out it's a C chord, bum ba dum bum ba dum, F chord with a C in the bass, dum ba dum dum. That's a G chord with a C bass, da da, back to a C chord, bum bum bum, bum ba dum bum ba dum. Then it goes to a D flat chord, dun da da dum. Then it goes to this weird sort of like F chord over a G bass, or like a G suspended 7 kind of sound. And somehow out of that, I can put together something kind of passable. Anyway, so I can do some of that, but like I wouldn't charge anybody money to watch me do this for very long. It's just something like in a setting like a wedding where someone asked me there really because they wanted me to play a beautiful song like, some of the ones that I've played a number of times over the years. Played a lot of country songs at weddings, like In This Life by Colin Ray, or Perfect is another one by Ed Sheeran that's gotten popular over the years. Various songs. They bring me in because they want me to do that to create their special moments. But then because they just don't want to hire somebody else to have to do all the other stuff, they ask, can you play the processional, the recessional, and things during the bridal or during the wedding party coming in and all of that. And, I find a way to do it. I've been able to fudge my way through that little bit of work with classical music, but it's a struggle for me, and under no circumstances would I hold the Piano Man approach out as the best method to play classical music. But it is the best method for me to play classical music because I just have sort of a learning struggle with the best method for delivering. There's no doubt about it. Written notation on a page is the best way to express classical music. But for someone like me who just struggles so hard with actually being able to use written notation and play it well, I'm better off to approximate it and use chords and rhythm patterns somehow. But that severely limits what I can do with classical music. So I hope that gives you some idea of how, how different kinds of music lend themselves to different modalities of play. And I've always held the Piano Man approach out as a method for playing popular music. I've never said it was the end-all be-all of everything that you could possibly do on piano, but it is the best way for me to approach pretty much anything on the piano because everything else confuses me so bad that I can't really get anywhere with it. So anyway, that's how you would use this to play some classical music, but it's not going to have the depth or the precision or the detail that you're going to have when you're following a composer's written notes. So I hope that makes sense. This is an interesting question that I fielded from some of my students, so I figured not only would I be answering that question for them, but it probably has crossed some other people's minds too. So there you go. I'm going to get out of here for now, but please remember, if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong, and I hope that you'll learn more about the Piano Man approach at pianomanaapproach.com, where I've got all kinds of cool information about it, because while it may not be the best way to learn classical music, it's an amazing way to learn popular music, and much faster and much more intuitive for many, many more people. So I hope you'll give it a check or check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. All right. I'll see you guys on the next video. Piano Man Steve signing out.